LeBron was all in. I'm not sure he was all in on giving up salary, but all in on getting Klay. And Klay chose Kyrie and the Mavericks over LeBron and his father.
I'm relentless. Can you feel this? I'm going all in. It's time to cash in. One moment in time. Let's get at this. Be tremendous. Relentless. I'm relentless.
Here we go.
This is the Skip Bayless Show, episode 119. This is a very special NBA free agency special because I'm about to unload and unleash on everything I've seen the last two bombshell days, all things NBA. I'm about to call out LeBron again. Forgive me, I can't help myself. Somebody's got to do it because he deserves it. And I'm about to tell you why the more I think about it, the harder I look at it, the more shocked I am that Klay Thompson chose the Dallas Mavericks over LeBron's Lakers and Klay's father's Lakers. Are you kidding me? That also could have a lot to do with LeBron bleeping James. And I'm about to tell you why Paul George would not have mattered that much to the Clippers, and I do not think he'll matter that much to the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry, James Harden is just a loser, and the Clippers are stuck with that loser. I'll tell you why my Oklahoma City Thunder will play the Boston Celtics in next year's NBA Finals. And I will tell you why Chris Paul is about to be even more valuable than Coach Popovich is in San Antonio. And I will conclude today with, forgive me for this, one small Dallas Cowboy topic because I can't help myself. I'm going to tell you why I was so happy that Malik Hooker, finally, somebody called out Micah Parsons. Thank you, Malik Hooker. I'll get to that last. Stay with me. But first up, it is not to be skipped. And I start with one of your questions. Is Klay going to Dallas more like him turning down the Lakers? That, Hal, is a very good question. When I first read your question last night, I was of a mind that no, Klay just took far more money to go to the Dallas Mavericks. He thought the Dallas Mavericks were just a little better opportunity to go win one more ring. But I got to tell you, Hal from Fort Wayne, the more I've thought about it, I believe you're right. I did not initially think that Klay chose the Mavericks over the Lakers for any other reason than money, because I was convinced that the Mavericks simply offered far more money. And that included, obviously, there's no state income tax in the state of Texas. So I had tweeted this to start with. I had tweeted that I'll believe it when I see it, when LeBron James actually takes less money to add a more valuable player, a quote-unquote third star. Rich Paul was quoted as saying a few days back, LeBron will this time take less money to add that one key piece, if that key piece is worth it. And I tweeted immediately calling phony baloney on Rich Paul, who is as smart as they come, as sly as they come, a master media manipulator, because LeBron has often made noise about taking less money to help improve his health and never done it except for the one small price that he paid to Pat Riley when he joined forces, as you might recall. We're going back now, 14 years ago, when he joined forces with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami. And Pat Riley said, everybody's got to take a little bit of a haircut here to fit us all three under the cap. Okay, guys? And they did. And ultimately, it proved very fruitful for LeBron after that first debacle of a nightmare of a start in 2011. But the point is, I have criticized LeBron again and again for, why don't you do what Tom Brady has done did consistently throughout his career? Why don't LeBron, you do what Tim Duncan did at the end of his career over the last 4 years? He took $10 million, then he took $6 million, $6 million, and $6 million to finish his career. And championships happened because certainly in 2014, when my San Antonio Spurs blew LeBron's Miami Heat off the court by a record finals margin, what happened? It was the bench. It was Patty Mills and Danny Green and company down the bench raining threes on LeBron's head. It was the Spurs' depth blowing LeBron's Miami Heat off the floor. So I have constantly gone after LeBron and ultimately after Rich Paul. Just why wouldn't you take half as much? You don't need the money. Of course, everybody needs the money. And one day LeBron wants to buy an NBA team. Obviously, it would behoove him to go ahead and max it out, which I think he will do in short order. Remember, sitting on the table from the Lakers right now is 3 more years at $162 million. It's well over $50 million a year. And I do not believe for 1 second that LeBron had any notion of taking less than the full $162 million, even for Klay Thompson. It sounded good. It played well, but it was another salvo of PR phony baloney, because I think LeBron just wanted Laker Nation to think that he would sacrifice when he really wouldn't sacrifice. So the curveball I got thrown later last night is when my friend Chris Haynes was reporting via Bleacher Report on NBA TV, and I happened to watch this live, that no, actually, according to Chris, and I do believe in Chris Haynes, that, wait a second, the Lakers offered Klay Thompson 4 years at $20 million per? Well, that's $80 million for 4 years, which is far more than the $50 million for 3 years that Klay accepted from the Dallas Mavericks. Huh? Really, Chris? Now, nobody else has reported that, but I'm taking no issue with Chris Haynes. I'm acknowledging his report. I'm accepting his report. Heck, I might as well be validating his report because he was so definitive, so authoritative about it. But there was a catch to it. There was a sign and trade possibility going on within this issue with the Lakers and Klay Thompson. And that was D'Angelo Russell being shipped to Golden State for Klay. D'Angelo obviously played briefly for Golden State. And is still a very, very good offensive player, a very explosive, as we saw, offensive player, a guy who, without LeBron and AD against Milwaukee, got you 44 at home, Laker Nation. He's still capable of that and would be capable of taking up slack for Golden State next year with Klay and obviously Chris Paul now being gone. So I'm thinking, well, wait, maybe his $19 million, I'm not a capologist, but maybe D'Angelo's $19 million was the way, as it sort of washed out, that the Lakers could then offer Klay $20 million a year for 4 years. But that was a sign and trade that did not reach fruition because Klay, in a shock to me, chose Dallas. Well, the next issue with Klay choosing Dallas over the Lakers was, I became a Derrick Jones Jr. fan during the finals run this past playoffs of the Dallas Mavericks. He was really good. He was really good on defense. Now, he has bounced around, and now that he's joined the Clippers, he's on his 6th NBA team. So he is a classic journeyman, once undrafted out of UNLV, but he did win a slam dunk championship, and he does give every ounce that he has on the defensive end, and he is long and a quick jumper. So I'm thinking, well, man, that's kind of feels like a key loss. He got $10 million a year to go to the Clippers for 3 years. Now, Dallas did add Quentin Grimes in the Hardaway Jr. trade to Detroit. They signed Najee Marshall, who's a pretty good player. So maybe those two guys are out of that same Derrick Jones Jr. mold where they're wing players who can defend at a pretty high level. So maybe they can take up the slack. But it just felt like Derrick Jones Jr. was a pretty key loss. And I'm thinking, well, Klay had to look at that and think, I don't know. I still like the Lakers' depth. I like Dalton Knecht. He was the steal of the draft, fell from around 6 to 17 to the Lakers. So I'm thinking, Klay, your father for the last, 23 years, I've got it here somewhere. Now 22 years, has been the Laker radio analyst. The Laker radio analyst for 22 years. Michael Thompson, Klay's father, ended his career as a Los Angeles Laker over the last 4 years. After, in 1978, he was the first overall pick in the draft to Portland. That was the Larry Bird draft, when somehow Red Auerbach knew to take Larry Bird with the 6th overall pick, even though he was going back to Indiana State for one more year. That was the steal of the century, obviously at 6th overall. But that was the Michael Thompson draft. I've been around Michael Thompson, had one good chat with him one time. We were somewhere at Golden State in the playoffs. He's a really good man. Really good heart. Great vision and perspective, mind. So all of a sudden, when this sunk in last night that, LeBron was recruiting Klay, while Kyrie for the Mavericks was also recruiting Klay. So LeBron was all in. I'm not sure he was all in on giving up salary, but all in on getting Klay. And Klay chose Kyrie and the Mavericks over LeBron and his father. So the first thing I thought of is, this will not reflect all that well on Michael Thompson as a Laker employee. And if in fact LeBron runs the Lakers, which he mostly does, he tries to say, I'm not involved. Don't look at me. I have plausible deniability. I had nothing to do with J.J. Redick. No, LeBron, you had everything to do with J.J. Redick because you were doing a podcast with him. And that was the biggest reason, maybe the sole reason, that J.J. Redick is now the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, having never coached anything but 4th grade basketball in his life. The point is that it starts to smack of Klay Thompson having inside information from his father. It starts to feel like father, and I'm only just projecting this, but it starts to feel like father told his son, Klay, it's a circus. It's a mess. LeBron's in complete control. He's going to deflect blame if it doesn't go right. He's going to point fingers as the first sign of going south. It's your fault, and your fault, because it's never his fault. Bronny, signed, sealed, and delivered now with the Lakers. He's on a guaranteed Laker contract. There's no G League involved here. He's going to be on the Laker roster, as I said, from day one. And he's going to play fairly significant minutes fairly quickly. I don't know how many that'll be, and I am a Bronny fan. In fact, I think Bronny is built even tougher than his father is, because Bronny's been through a lot in his life, in the harshest spotlight any kid could ever be thrust into as LeBron James Jr. I love how Bronny's handled this. I get a good feeling every time I watch him not only play basketball, but just handle himself, carry himself. Kid's got a backbone. Kid's got guts. Kid's got principle and character. His parents did a good job raising him. I think he'll be more calm, cool, and collected in the eye of next year's storm than even his father will be. I think he'll play pretty well alongside his father, but it is going to be circus material because you have a first-time head coach trying to juggle minutes with Bronny and proven veterans who are not going to love it when Bronny gets his 12 minutes, 14 minutes, and 16 minutes, and maybe even some nights 20 minutes a game playing alongside, if not in place of, his father. I think Bronny will be pretty good. I think he'll become a clutch three-point shooter. I've always gotten the feeling that Bronny had a bigger clutch gene than his father does. McDonald's game, he was in the spotlight, and they went to him late 2 or 3 times, and he just nailed threes. He did not shoot the three well at USC, but I'm giving him a complete and utter break because I'm knocking on wood for him. He had a serious heart condition that waylaid him to start his first year of college basketball at USC, and it just never quite got going. And I get it. And that team never quite got going around Isaiah Collier, who I thought was going to be the first pick in the draft, and he fell all the way to the bottom of the first round. I'm throwing all that out because I think that Bronny, at only 6'1.5", will become a very credible, if not difference-making, on-ball defender. I think that body of his, which already looks pretty good to me, will become more and more of a man body. So I like what Bronny will bring, except it's going to be very difficult on J.J. Redick to juggle minutes and egos down the bench. I think Klay heard that from his father. I think Klay thought, J.J. Redick is the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers? I don't want any part of that. And one thing I've always loved about Klay Thompson, of those Golden State Warriors, he was the one guy who did not worship at the shrine of LeBron James. He did not worship at the feet of LeBron James. Draymond did. I know Draymond once upon a time got mad at LeBron in the finals, called him the B word, as you know, and got finally suspended because of that. But I look up that offseason and Draymond's business partners with LeBron. Draymond's all about LeBron. I think Steph sort of warily embraces LeBron. They've been competitive for MVPs, finals MVPs. But the one guy who really wanted nothing to do with LeBron was Klay Thompson. And it smacks of, in the end, that Klay said, you know what? I'd much rather play with Luka and Kyrie for Jason Kidd in Dallas. No Derrick Jones Jr., no problem. That's what Klay ultimately said. And as soon as I heard this move, I immediately tweeted what I believe with all my heart and soul. If somehow you could have quickly turned back the clock and had Klay Thompson on this past year's Dallas Mavericks team, that team with Klay beats Boston in the NBA Finals. When Luka went cold and Kyrie went even colder, you don't think Klay could have made some threes, big stage, big moments? Klay can be as clutch as they come. Yeah, he can go cold also. He can be extremely hot. In fact, he could be the hottest, coldest player as a shooter I think I've ever seen. 37 points in a quarter, all catch and shoot. But you put him on the final stage after he's played now 33 games in the NBA Finals and 158 playoff games. You want to talk about a made man? You want to talk about knowing how it feels to perform in the biggest moments at the highest levels on the greatest stage in the sport? Klay would have made the difference for the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. Now, obviously, can they get back to the finals? I'll get to that in just a moment. But I'm still shocked that Klay Thompson, in the end, did not choose the Los Angeles Lakers, Hal. Which brings me back to your Lakers. I still say, in the end, in the long run, I really liked that team last year. It just couldn't stay healthy. I'm mystified at what I keep hearing on television, on radio shows, keep reading this on all the big websites, that the Lakers have such a bad roster. And I'm thinking, what do you mean such a poor roster? What are you talking about? You don't think Gabe Vincent was just what the doctor ordered? You don't think Gabe Vincent could have done last year whatever Klay could have done for the Lakers last year? I mean, let's be honest. Klay is on his last legs at 34 because he suffered some career-threatening injuries, Achilles, obviously ACL, horrendous injuries that took away his defensive prowess. He fell all the way to 233rd in defensive win shares last year, so he doesn't defend at all anymore. He's just a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. Maybe the greatest ever at that. That's just what the doctor ordered for Luka and Kyrie, and it would have been what the doctor ordered for LeBron. But you don't think Gabe Vincent could have been that guy? You don't think Gabe Vincent could have played much better defense than Klay would have played for the Lakers if we go back to last year, or let's even fast forward to next year? Gabe Vincent is as clutch as they come in big moments on big stages here of late, because I saw him do it against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. I saw him do it at Denver in the NBA Finals. He is absolutely fearless, and he will get up in you on defense. And he tore cartilage in his knee beginning of the season. I don't know why they didn't get it fixed immediately. They tried, they failed to get him back in the lineup. Finally, he had to go have the cleanup surgery, the scope, and he was useless the entire year. You don't think Jared Vanderbilt could have helped last year? He's as nasty and long a perimeter defender as there is in the league. You don't think Christian Wood, if he had been healthy, could have helped last year? He's 6'10" and can rim protect and shoot threes fearlessly, provenly. Cam Reddish, I've always been a big fan of his since he was at Duke. NBA body, takes and makes big shots, couldn't stay healthy. There are 4 key pieces to that puzzle last year who were not healthy, and yet and still, they're right there in the fourth quarter of Game 1 at Denver, first round of the playoffs, and LeBron pouts and won't shoot until the game's out of hand. Game 2 at Denver, the whole series could have been turned on its head. LeBron gets a wide open free throw of a 3-point shot to win the game, seconds left, and he missed it. It's as simple as that. But that team, coached by Darvin Ham, who's doing a pretty good job to me, was right there. So I keep hearing Laker entitlement of, well, let's just go get DeJounte Murray. And it came down to Atlanta saying, no, we want Austin Reeves. You got to throw Austin Reeves into whatever the deal was. Probably Rui was in there, maybe D'Lo's, I don't know, but they wanted Austin Reeves. And I was with the Lakers for saying no, because DeJounte's not that good. I like him, but I don't love him. Austin Reeves is really, really good, and he's only going to get really, really better. And then I kept hearing about Donovan Mitchell. Let's just snap our fingers and go, well, let's trade for Donovan Mitchell. And I said, Cleveland's not going to give him up. And Cleveland just maxed him out. And he is now, for the next, whatever it is, 5 years, a Cleveland Cavalier. DeJounte obviously went to New Orleans. Klay, let's go get Klay. And now on the front burner becomes DeMar DeRozan. We'll see how that works out. My point is, in the end, something just happened. A message just got sent that the Lakers are no longer the destination. Maybe they're no longer, in the eyes of players around the league, the Lakers anymore, because LeBron has become more trouble than he's worth running the Lakers with now his puppet head coach, J.J. Redick. LeBron is now effectively the unofficial head coach of the Lakers, for better and for worse. This is Montel from Las Vegas. Is the Thunder trading away Paul George to the Clippers officially now the biggest steal in NBA trade history? Considering the Clippers just let Paul George go for nothing, boy, you got me on this, Montel. Biggest steal ever. My God. This was the Herschel Walker trade of the NBA. If you remember what my Cowboys did, the Jimmy Jerry Cowboys did, trading Herschel for picks that became Emmett and Darren Woodson and Russell Maryland, and they got players on top of picks. And as Jimmy Johnson called it, the great train robbery. Well, now in hindsight, this looks like an even greater train robbery because the Clippers gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who should have won MVP this past year. He would have gotten my vote. They gave up Danilo Gallinari. They gave up 5 first-round picks. 5 first-round picks. All of that for Paul George. And by the way, one of those first-round picks has already become Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara, who has already become the Oklahoma City Thunder's 3rd best player. My God. What a haul. What a robbery. What a steal. I mean, if it had just been SGA for PG, that would have been a pretty big steal right there. But this was all-time robbery. So, for the record, I have never wavered, for the record, in my assessment of Paul George. He's just not that guy. He's not a superstar. He's just a star, and he's a really good star. But he's just a second star. He's a complimentary star. He's a 1A, and a very good 1A. He's a wondrous talent. There are nights I watch Paul George, and I'm just in awe. Long, 6'8", flows, great rhythm, silky smooth. When he gets it in rhythm, whoo, can he stroke it from 3? Shot a career high 41% from 3. Last year has always been up around 40 in his career. If you go back 4, 5, 6 years ago, he was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, a steals artist, a deflection wizard. Just got his hands on basketballs. Just hard to get around. But he's 34 now. He's played 14 NBA seasons. He's not that anymore on defense. Still pretty good. He ranked 52nd in defensive win shares, but he's not shut down, locked down anymore. What he is just PG, as in pretty good. The problem with Paul George is he has no real killer will to him. Really good guy, nice guy. But remember when Carmelo Anthony, in their days together with Westbrook in Oklahoma City, remember when Carmelo sat up before the media early in the playoffs and chuckled at the notion of Paul George calling himself Playoff P? Remember when Carmelo just chuckled? Playoff P? Huh? Okay. That should have told you all you needed to know about PG as in pretty good. Remember how Paul George in the bubble just came unglued? Just fell apart mentally. Just said, I just can't take it here anymore. Remember that? Remember how my friend Jared Dudley, playing for the Lakers who won it all in the bubble, later said on a podcast, them boys, as in the Clippers, them boys just didn't want to be in that bubble. And it started with PG as in pretty good. Paul George can get hot. He can get really, really cold. Best I ever saw him play was in the 2021 playoffs. He played like a superstar after Kawhi went down. Remember Kawhi going down against Utah? And then here came PG, who wasn't pretty good. He was real good. Because there was no pressure, there was no expectation. Nobody thought the Clippers had any chance anymore, and they made it all the way to a Game 6 of the conference finals out here in LA against Chris Paul in Phoenix. And Chris Paul had the game of his life to stop the Paul George run. But there are nights when I see Paul George have extremely confident body language, And there are nights he just looks nervy to me. He looks unsure to me. And Paul George is capable of sometimes saying and doing just goofy things, wacky things, kind of things. So the Clippers just flat out just said to Paul George, no, you're just not worth that. We're not going to go to 4 years, $221 million, because you're not that guy. We already paid that guy. That's Kawhi. The Clippers ultimately will go as far as Kawhi Leonard takes them. And I like Kawhi. I know a lot of people around Kawhi. I root for Kawhi, even though he burned my Spurs back in the day. But I do. I still pull for him. And I just think he's star-crossed. I just think his body will betray him at the worst possible moment. He's got 2 creaky knees, always in need of cleanup surgery. Every offseason he needs another cleanup surgery. And I just don't trust he's going to be there when they really need him. But the Clippers know it's Kawhi or bust. Not PG pretty good or bust. It's Kawhi or bust. So to their credit, even they're about to go into a big new house out here in LA. Big new beautiful state-of-the-art arena. They just said, no, we're not going to be stuck with Paul George at 37 and 38, having to pay him that much money because he won't be worth it. And the point is, the Clippers just got stuck. They just didn't want to go there with him, so they wound up having to go there again with James Harden, because James Harden, I'm going to say this one more time. The longer I watch him, the more I believe he's got nothing but loser intangibles. He doesn't keep himself in shape. I don't think he cares that much about winning, just about making money, putting up numbers. He doesn't play hard on defense ever because he just doesn't care enough. And he's gotten by on all-world talent, rare talent, the likes of which we've never seen in perimeter scoring talent. And now as he ages in dog years because he does not care what he eats and he does not keep himself in shape in the off seasons. He just has to play his way into shape. And the Clippers had no choice as they let Paul George walk and go to Philly. They just said, just on sheer marquee value, we need to keep the star factor of James Harden. We just need, we're just going to have to give him his $70 million for 2 years at $35 million. He won't come close to being worth that. And he's another player, when you need him most, he will not be there. Loser intangibles cannot be trusted. So that brings me to Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. Daryl Morey said, I'm desperate. He's been desperate for many years. I need 2 years of Paul George. I'll pay for 2 years for Paul George with the 2 last years of Paul George, the 3rd and 4th years. I'll bite those bullets when it comes because maybe I'll break through and win one NBA championship before then. The one championship that has eluded the genius Daryl Morey lo these many years. So he was willing to go max, 4 years, $221 million for Paul George, hoping that next year or maybe the next year, Paul George will make the difference in the Philadelphia 76ers breaking through and winning the NBA championship. He went ahead and gave Tyrese Maxey his money, and I was all for that because I love me some Tyrese Maxey. I love his spirit, his spunk, his joy that he plays with, his kid energy that he plays with, and as quick a first step as there is today in professional basketball. I love all of that about Tyrese Maxey. But he's only about 6'2". I think he's more 6'1"-ish, so he can only lift you so high. I like Kelly Oubre, and they were able to keep him. I like the edge with which Kelly Oubre plays. I like Kelly Oubre's experienced scoring. He's got savvy, he's got tenacity, he's got basketball brains. He just knows how to play and how to make big buckets at big moments. But he's still not enough to get you over the top to win a championship. So will Paul George be better than James Harden ever was in Philly? Sure he will be. Will he be better than Tobias Harris? You better believe it. Let's even go back to Ben Simmons. Will Paul George be more valuable than Ben Simmons was in his troubled state that he wound up in with the Sixers? Yes, Paul George will be better. But I'm here to tell you, once again, basketball ultimately is a one-man game. And that one man is Joel Embiid. I have been as big a supporter and defender as you can find in the media for Joel Embiid. I pushed for him to win that MVP. I pushed 2 years in a row. I thought he should have won it the year before over Joker. And he did win MVP, and I must admit, I think it was the worst thing that could have happened. Joel Embiid is ridiculously gifted at 7 feet tall. He is the greatest tall shooter we have ever seen, and it ain't even close. He's the greatest 7 foot or higher free throw shooter we've ever seen, and it ain't close. On any given night, when Joel decides to be, he will always be the best player on the floor. If in fact, let's do the hypothetical, next year becomes Boston and Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Finals, on any given night, the best player on the floor, if he so desires, will be Joel Embiid. He's better than anything Boston has. Boston has no Joel Embiid. Jason Tatum got his money, the biggest money ever paid any player ever. I'm happy for him because he's a great kid. And he's a very good player. He's not better than Jaylen Brown in my estimation, and I've been saying it for 3 years. And now Jaylen Brown's going to come in next year with another chip on his shoulder because Jason Tatum, now after Jaylen got paid even more. And that will do nothing but infuriate and motivate Jaylen Brown in a good way for the Boston Celtics. But Jaylen Brown ain't Joel Embiid. Jason Tatum sure ain't Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is the ultimate nuclear difference maker that once again you can't trust. He's another one. He's a bigger James Harden in a lot of ways. He just doesn't care enough. You can't light that fire. He has to light it, and he doesn't always light it. Joel Embiid does not care what he eats or drinks. I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about Cokes, as in Coca-Colas, as in sugar drinks, as in pizzas, as in donuts, as in whatever he feels like eating, he eats. I've talked to people inside the Sixers organization who even last year, they were surprised he could sort of get up and down the floor because he's in such poor shape. He will not stay in shape in the offseason. He will gain weight in the offseason. It's way too much weight to put on his knees, which are Kawhi-like knees, creaky at best. They're always in need of some scope cleanup of meniscus tears. They're going to plague him because he weighs too much for his height. It's too much pounding to come down on those knees with I don't know what he weighs now, 330 pounds. Boom, 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 all night long. It's just too much. I fear for him. He's 30 years of age, going on 40 years of age. some nights I just don't think he cares enough, even though when he gets angry on the floor in a good way, he does have some killer will in him that James Harden does not have. I've seen him get angry and say, I got this, and just take games over. Because you can't stop him. You can't stop him at the rim. You can't stop him shooting little 10, 12, 15-foot fadeaways. Nobody can stop that. He's got the deftest touch for his height we've ever seen. But I just don't trust it. So you can throw in playoff P. You can throw in Oubre and Tyrese and on and on. I like the team. I like the roster. But in the end, it just comes down to, very simply, what are you going to get from Joel when it matters most? And when it has mattered most in the playoffs, Joel has not been there for the Sixers. And history would tell you he will not be there for them next year. It's always something. He's either hurt or he's sick. He's got a tummy ache. He's got a migraine. He's got his knee. He's wearing a knee sleeve. Then it's gone. Then it's back on again. You just can't trust him. So as great a move as it was to sign Paul George for 4 years and $221 million just to have Paul George on your roster, in the end, Paul George will be irrelevant in Philadelphia unless Joel Embiid is relevant. Which brings me to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That sound you hear approaching is thunder with lots of lightning and maybe even some rain, as in R-E-I-G-N, rain. I now love this team even more than I loved it last year. Far more than as an Oklahoma City native, I was able to love those Durant, Westbrook, Harden teams. 2011, 2012. The team that went to the finals against LeBron's Heat. The team that was already starting behind the scenes to be at each other's throats over Russell Westbrook opting to shoot more shots than Kevin Durant did. There was something about that team I just couldn't wrap my arm around, but maybe I knew too much about what was going on between Westbrook and Durant. These Thunder truly love each other far more than I even love this team. It's been a while since I've seen a professional team love each other the way these Thunder do. A professional basketball team that insists every time they do an on-court interview with the star of the game that everybody, all the starters and a couple of bench players, gather around arm in arm around the star of the game. It's usually Shai Gilgeous, but it can be Jalen Williams, it can be Chet Holmgren, and they all gang around arm in arm and participate in the interview because they do it together. I haven't seen that in a long, long time, and I believe it is authentic. I believe it is legit. I believe in these Thunder because they believe in each other. And somehow, some way, they won more games than any team in the Western Conference last year. Somehow, some way, against the Dallas Mavericks that won the West ultimately, it came down to a Game 6 in Dallas in which, I don't know what happened to Shai Gilgeous. He lost his mind. He tried too hard. He committed a pretty silly foul on a three-point shot, P.J. Washington, that cost them the game and cost them the opportunity to get to play a Game 7 against Dallas back in Oklahoma City. If they meet again in next year's playoffs, whatever round it might be, that won't happen. I say next year, Oklahoma City will beat Dallas because next year, I'm here to tell you, Oklahoma City is going to win the West in the playoffs as well as in the regular season. And that is because when I least expected, Sam Presti did it again. He's got to be the best GM in basketball. And he impressed by pressing 2 more wow buttons. Alex Caruso is as tough and fearless and nasty a perimeter defender as there is in the league, and they went and got him. They landed Alex Caruso, who out here in LA used to be known as the Caruso Show with the Lakers when they discovered him out of Texas A&M. And now he's with the Thunder right on time as a 30-year-old, a proven veteran who can defend at the highest level, who can disrupt at the highest level, who can make offensive plays at a supreme level when called upon, when necessary. And wait, they've got Alex Caruso with Lou Dort and with Cason Wallace. You may not know Cason Wallace out of Kentucky, but he is long, agile, gifted defender. If those three are in the game, somebody's going to have a hard time getting the ball past half court. That's how good those three will be on defense. And then I was hoping this move would happen. Presti went and signed Isaiah Hartenstein from the Knicks. It's a key loss for the Knicks and a key gain for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hartenstein averaged 8 rebounds a game through the playoffs. Half of them were offensive because he is a football player in the paint. He can block shots. He can dislodge the basketball. He can out-scrap you for loose balls on the floor. He will, pardon my language, play his ass off. And he's got a pretty big ass to play off because he goes 7 feet and maybe 250-ish, as opposed to my man Chet Holmgren, who's 7'1" and maybe 200. I'm saying Isaiah outweighs Chet by 50 pounds, and it will show. It will manifest itself in havoc wreaked in the paint. It's exactly what the Thunder needed. They needed somebody to take the physicality pressure off Chet, who is a gifted shot blocker. But now they got 2 different kinds of shot blockers and rim protectors. They got one who does it with muscle and hustle, and one who does it with rare quick jump gifts at 7'1" and long. It's going to be hard to score on the Thunder next year. And this will free up Chet to be a little bit more of a ball screener, a pick and roller who can pick and pop out and shoot threes, because Chet can flat out stroke the 3. He can do damage from 3. This opens up, frees up the offense in ways I could only hope were coming. Alex Caruso and Hartenstein equals NBA Finals for next year's Thunder. And I just want to congratulate Sam Presti. You were patient. You stockpiled all those picks. You still have a bunch of them, and you will only get better and better and better. We could be looking at a Thunder dynasty. This is Ken from Sacramento. So, how do you describe the Paul George and Kawhi era with the Clippers? It was just 5 long, hard years of hopeless hope. There was always hope, but it always became hopeless hope to me. 5 years of, this is going to be the year. And then Kawhi was hurt again. The bubble, the team fell completely apart. They're up 3-1 on Denver, as you recall, with Doc as the coach. And they fell apart, and they didn't want to be in the bubble. And then in the next year's playoffs in 21, after Kawhi and Paul George had been so sensational against Luka. Remember that series? Luka comes out here to LA and wins games 1 and 2, as he is wont to do as the road warrior. Didn't do it against Boston, but did it so many other times against so many other teams. Remember, Luka wins games 1 and 2 and 21 out here in LA. And then Kawhi and Paul George go to Dallas on a Friday night with Michael Irvin and every other Dallas celebrity in the stands. Place was on fire. And Kawhi and Paul George just torched the home team. Torched them, then torched them again on Sunday. Then came home and lost. Then went back to Dallas and won. And so now the road team had won each of the first 6 games. And finally, Kawhi went home and said, that's enough. And they won game 7. And then next round, right on schedule, Joe Ingles just bumped Kawhi. I don't know what it was. He just bumped him as Kawhi was dribbling the ball to his right. Just bumped him and he was just knocked off stride a little bit. One little false step. ACL tear. Good night, Clippers. I mentioned earlier, Paul George went on a great roll, but it just was never going to be enough. That cost the Clippers all of 2022, no Kawhi. Still ACL recovery. 23, Kawhi played 2 games in the first round playoff series, but only 2 as they lost in 5 to Phoenix because he was hurt. And then this year he played only 2 games against Dallas in the first round playoff series because he was hurt and not right. They say Kawhi's going to try to play in the Olympics, and I'm like, man, if I'm the Clippers, I'm not happy with that. I just got to tell you, I know be true to your country, and I get all that. But after all the games he has missed, the big games, the playoff games, and then you're going to go play in the Olympics on those knees? Seriously? Just 5 long, painful seasons. I just have a feeling Kawhi will always be hurt. And even though the cupboard isn't bare and the Clippers aren't finished yet, it just feels like the Clippers are still always the Clippers. Ballmer buys and owns them, but they're not a baseball team. There is a salary cap, and you can only do so much. And now that Jerry West is gone as their advisor, I just fear for Lawrence Frank making the right decisions, because the more I watch Lawrence Frank operate, the less I love it. This is Christian from San Jose. Do you believe in Chris Paul as a Spur? I believe in Chris Paul at age 39 as a coach for the Spurs. As a player coach, but more as a coach than a player. The Warriors said no to Chris Paul because if you watched him last year, he's done. He's just done. It's hard to watch. But as a player coach, more of a coach than a player, I should call him a coach player. Nobody on this planet can show Victor Wembanyama and the other younger Spurs how to run a pick and roll, how to win basketball games in the National Basketball Association better than CP3 can. Nobody can teach tricks of the trade better than CP3, who's always had one screw loose. He's always played in that gray area. He's been prone in his past to go below the belt with shots. But nobody can teach this team better than Chris Paul can. Which brings me to why I'm still scratching my head. Last year, I watched every game. I watched Wemby start to figure it out. Oh, wait, I shouldn't just stand out here at the three-point line all the time. Oh, wait, I should go inside and maybe try to kind of like post up and they can lob me the ball and I can shoot little 2-foot hook shots. Really? Oh, I can do that. And they can't stop me? Oh, I love that. Okay, I'll do that. And then every once in a while, he pops out like Chet, strokes the 3. I don't think he's quite as good as Chet from 3, but he got better and better as the year wore on. Defense, it's a joke. It's a flat-out joke. I thought the best defensive player in the league last year, by far, was Wemby. He, by far, blocked the most shots. Second was Chet, and he was by far behind. What was it, like 50 behind in blocks? So how, with a player like that, did you go 22-60, Greg Popovich? I kept asking on Undisputed, how? I would watch them and I'd say, I know they don't have a true point guard. I know they don't have great scores, but they have some pretty good ones. They have some first-round picks out there with them. And you can only win 22 games and you lose 60? Night after night, I would be in awe of how they would lose games or blow games. And I kept saying, is Popovich getting a pass here? I've said it before, Greg Popovich has not been Greg Popovich since Tim Duncan walked out that door. Once upon a time, Coach Pop said, when Tim walks out that back door, I'll be right behind him. No, that was a long time ago, and Coach Pop just signed on for another 5 years after he hit the lottery with Wemby. So how long does the honeymoon last here? Well, maybe the new quote-unquote coach of the San Antonio Spurs is Chris Paul. Next year, Chris Paul will be more valuable than the man many consider the greatest coach ever, Greg Popovich. Which brings me to, I'm going to pronounce this two different ways, so forgive me if I get it wrong on one of my pronunciations. It's either Gyro or Hyro from LA. But I love the question, Hyro or Gyro. If you drew up a play where LeBron had to find an open Bronny, what would you call it? I like that. I like me some Bronny, as I mentioned. So I actually thought about this. So I thought, well, if you happen to be in Philadelphia, you could go with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right? If it's going to Bronny. Then I thought, I do like calling the play the Rising Sun play. And then I started thinking, I don't know if it's too far a blast from the past, but there's a movie I like called Rising Sun featuring Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes. I thought, well, maybe it sounds too much like the movie title. And so I landed on what I would call this play. I would just call it Sunday. Sunday. And I hope they do call Sunday occasionally for Bronny, even in some big moments. I just have a feeling that the son has a bigger clutch gene than the father does. I don't know. Maybe the son got it from mom. Maybe Savannah's got the clutch gene. Which brings me finally to one quick left turn into my Dallas Cowboys. What's left of them? I just want to thank Malik Hooker for saying something I've been saying for the last 2 years on Undisputed. I needed somebody inside to validate it. I needed somebody in the locker room to echo it, to drive it home. I needed a player, especially a defensive player, to say what I have been saying. And Malik Hooker said it on Keyshawn Johnson's podcast. Thank you, Malik, for having the guts. I'm not sure it was premeditated. I'm not sure he had thought about it. Maybe it just spilled out of his mouth because it spilled out of his soul, out of his subconscious, out of his psyche. Malik said, in effect, Micah should be the fourth to get paid on this team. After, obviously, CD, after Zach Martin, after Dak, Micah should be fourth because Micah has not lived up. He has not. He has not lived up to the billing. As Malik said, he hasn't even scratched the surface, and he has not. It seems like Micah, early on in his career, is a little more interested in commentating via podcast on football than actually dominating football games. That's how it comes across to me, and I've said so many times. So now he obviously wants to be the highest paid defensive player in the history of professional football. And I'm not sure he ever will be the best defensive player in pro football in any given year that he plays in. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I'm starting to have my doubts. So paying him the most money ever for a defensive player could be yet another really bad move for my Cowboys. It could be yet another crushing albatross of a contract that hangs over this team's head going forward and keeps them from even sniffing an NFC championship game, the likes of which they haven't seen in almost 30 years. So somebody other than me, because I'm just a hater, but somebody had to light a fire internally under Micah. Jerry's not going to light it. Stephen Jones is not going to light it. Dak's definitely not going to light it. I don't even think DeMarcus Lawrence would step out there and light it as the veteran presence on that defense. But Malik Hooker said, I'll do it. Again, I'm not sure he slept on it and did it. I think it spilled out. And he called out Micah Parsons. And Micah was not happy about it. And Micah fired back and called out Malik. And all I can say is good for Malik. That's it for episode 119. Thank you for listening and or watching. Thanks to Jonathan Berger and his All-Pro team for making this show go. Thanks to Tyler Korn for producing. Please remember, Undisputed every weekday, 9:30 to noon Eastern, the Skip Bayless Show, every week.